I think you have to allow yourself to not at all listen to constructive criticism, because you can learn from others about how you show up in the world. But then you have to dedicate yourself to staying out there and getting yourself better. So, there's, I guess I'm a big believer in the 10,000 hours. So the idea is that don't give up until you have that 10,000 hours. Like, always believe in yourself that you can get better. Don't let them stop you.
After 2 decades of dedicated service as a geriatric social worker, Julie Steinbacher established her own law practice in her garage, offering superior legal support for seniors since 2002. Specializing in asset protection for long-term healthcare, guardianships, and care management, her firm has expanded into 7 offices across northern and central Pennsylvania, with over 60 professionals, including long-term care planners and elder care navigators. Julie is the president and master profitability coach of the $1 Million Solution, which is a coaching group that helps attorneys nationwide elevate their practice and profitability through personal one-to-one coaching. She's a certified elder law attorney through the National Elder Law Foundation, an author and sought-after lecturer on diverse topics such as trust and estate planning, special needs planning, wealth protection, succession planning, leadership, and work-life balance. Julie's also a certified dementia practitioner. You have got a wealth of knowledge, which I cannot wait to dig into. So we are talking about mindset for financial advisors, to share your experience, your expertise, and how they can grow their AUM, grow their profits without having to spend more time in the office. So let's dive in. And I'd love to find out more about your journey to how you've got to do what you're doing, because you have expertise in many areas.
Yeah, Nina, thanks. I think for me, the journey was driven by passion. My bachelor's degree is in gerontology, which is study the aging process. And I've always loved helping the elderly population. And that's, can be anything from somebody's about to go to a nursing home to, we're planning for what retirement's going to look like. And so, I started out with this real passion and a clear understanding of kind of what I wanted to do. And that has really opened up so many doors for me, whether it is actually doing that practice as an attorney, taking my social work skills and expanding that, or, doing work like this, coaching other businesses, other elder law and estate planning attorneys or financial advisors to really end up having the practice that they want.
Wonderful. With all the experience that you've had working with financial advisors in particular, what are the main areas where you see them getting stuck? I mean, what is causing their stuckness?
Yeah, it's a great question. For me, I think it's a lack of clarity and a lack of understanding the different skills that need to be as a business grows. So for clarity, like, we all need to know what it is we're trying to build. It's not just about, what's happening today. Did I get that sale? But really, what do we want our life to look like? What do we want our business to look like? Do we want a business where we work 3 days a week and, make X amount of money? Do we want to expand that? So really, I spend days with people just, coaching just to help them find that clarity. Because otherwise, people either aren't successful, or maybe worse than that, they build something they didn't even want. So clarity is so important. And then the second thing is that having an understanding that what got us here won't get us there. So the skill set that it takes to build, the first $1 million is a totally different skill set than what it takes to build the second and the third. And you as a person have to develop those skill sets. You have to get better. So, when we first start a business, if we're pretty good at sales, we're pretty motivated, and we're willing to work a little hard, we can have a financial, advisors and be successful. But when we get to a point where, like, we can no longer do everything, we have to start delegating, and we have to have processes, and have data, and really look at our business processes. That's a different skill set. That doesn't mean that everybody can't learn it. They also can choose to outsource it. But you have to have an intentional plan. And what I see, Nina, getting stuck is those two places. They either really lack clarity, which you see that in how they perform. They really don't want, they're going through the motions, but they're not really like, I need to have this, or I need to go after this. They're not making decisions. Or they are, but they've achieved some success, but they're now stuck because they're not willing to, like, let go of the way they've done things before, and they're not willing to be vulnerable again and understand they're going to have to learn. So I think for me, they're probably the two biggest things that I see.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what I see as well with clients. This is the stuff to get past, isn't it? We get so used to seeing life in a certain way and doing things in a certain way. It's breaking out those old habits and creating new productive habits. I love what you say about lack of clarity, because what I've seen is that people who don't have a really clear idea of what they want in life and how they want to show up in life, they tend to drift. And when you drift, then you tend to settle for mediocrity and less. So how can people become motivated to really think deeply about what they want in life? Because I remember when I used to be a client of a coach, and they say, figure out what you want in life, script it out, really think about it. I think, that's so boring, having to think about the details, and I don't want to do this step. I want to kind of skip it. So I think we tend to resist going into that, into that clarity.
I agree. And for me, the way that I built my businesses was, by, setting aside that time, but I couldn't do it by myself. I had a coach, Rob Berkeley, who I used to do vision days with. And you set aside that time. It doesn't work as well virtually, doesn't work as well if you stay in your own place, but you get out of your own place and your own comfort zone. And I do that with people now. I do lots of what I call clarity days, where we are just thinking about what the next step. So one, you have to set aside the time. And I think for many people, you do need a guide, somebody to help get that out of you. And I think that for so many people, that clarity is being willing to admit the things that you don't want. And so much of it, we're holding on to things that we think we should have, or an idea. I think mastermind groups are another great way. But I would say too, if I were to start with somebody, I would tell them that they really have to think about their core values. And so for me, that's how you want to show up in life. So it's not, I don't think you necessarily start that I want a $5 million, financial advisor firm. I think you kind of start out like, how do you want to show up in life? What are the things that are important to you? So and I think this is important too, in even just getting through life, because like for me, my core values, integrity, service, empathy, quality. I want quality legal documents. And this is helpful, Nina, for people even just to be thinking about, if I figure out what my core values are, then I know, like, if I'm like in the world and somebody like ticks me off, like I go from being okay to like being really upset about something and hung on that, it's probably because somebody violated my core values. And if I have that understanding of that, I think it starts there. I think it starts in, how do you want to show up in this world? And then once we figure out how you want to show up in this world, we can figure out how to get you there, because people show up differently in the world. And I know some people could be listening and saying, oh, that's not that big of a deal. It's hard to decide what your core values are, because you can't have 10 of them. Like, they're core. So you have to get it down to really being clear with yourself. What are the 4 or 5 most important things to you? So just for anybody that's listening, that's something that I think is a really good kind of starting point. Not what you want, but how you want to show up in this world, I think is a great place to think about, and start that idea. And you can build from there.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely great advice. In terms of building up the skill set to run a profitable, fulfilling practice that serves you on a work-life basis. What do you think that many financial advisors run up against? Where do they sort of hit a brick wall with that?
Oh, yeah. I think there's a resistance amongst financial advisors, in my work, uh, to really utilize metrics and things that are used in other businesses. So, for instance, a financial advisor might say to me, I don't have to keep track of my time. I don't have to be like an attorney and do that. And please know, every business has to keep track of how much does it cost me to get this person in front of me, and what do I really make off that potential sale. So many times financial advisors are all excited because they get some commission, and you think, oh, that commission's so big. But not when you think about all the marketing dollars and everything and all the time that it took you to get that commission. You don't really make, $10,000 in that hour, right? It's all the things that lead up there. And I think every one of us, so I think we have to be open to thinking about those types of metrics so we can figure out what's profitable, what areas of our practice are profitable, what isn't profitable. And so I think there's this idea that I, as a financial advisor, am not used to kind of taking on collecting data that I think is important in any business. I mean, I personally own 4 businesses, and in every business, data is important. And how much time and energy it takes me to get a client to say yes, and then what they're willing to pay me, and how much time it takes me to provide that service to them is really important. And I know, Nina, what I'm saying right now is not popular amongst financial advisors. You asked the question, and that I really feel like sometimes there's this idea that they're different. And a business is a business. Like, we start with the basics. So how much does it cost to get the person there? What am I going to make off of it? And does that make sense for me to be spending my time that way?
So this comes to looking at how they are looking at their business and themselves and their goals. And some people just naturally see a big vision, and they just decide they're going to have it, and they do what it takes to get there. Whereas other people tend to hold back, and they tend to think a bit smaller, and they doubt themselves, etc. For you, building up your businesses, and you went from one industry into another industry. How has your mindset helped you and supported you in all of this? Did you have to do a lot of work on it? Did it come naturally to you to think expansively?
Oh, Nina, I wish it came naturally. No, I mean, it's definitely like we all have things that we are accustomed to, whether it could be religion, it could be the way we were raised, it could be the experience of us being raised, it could be other experiences we've had as adults. We all, I think, need to. Well, I could say for me, I needed to do a lot of work on it. And the interesting thing for me is that mindsets really work that we all need to continuously do. Because for me, what I felt like is that I would do mindset work, both in mastermind groups with a coach, listening to podcasts like this to put, the right ideas in my head. And I would get to a point where I thought, oh, wow, look, I've made it, but then I just realized there was another ceiling that I didn't even know existed, that there was another way to look at it. And so I think it's just work that so many of us have to do on an ongoing basis. And, that idea of abundance thinking. And I think, for a financial advisor, particularly if you're placing products or trying to get a new client, I think in your industry, you get more no's. And, so as an attorney, I have a little easier. 90% of my clients are going to say yes to me. 90% of your new clients are probably not going to say yes to you. And so, with that mindset, it's harder to kind of get back up and say, okay, it's also more important that you're not spending too much money on marketing and those types of things. But I think it's hard. And so I think we all can, learn from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. In terms of setbacks, when things don't go according to plan, how do you cope with setbacks? How do you get back on track?
Yeah. So I That's interesting that you asked me that question, because I really thought about that recently. I just did a mastermind event and I talked about this. And I think the key to success is how quickly you can recover. So setbacks are going to happen. We're going to have to fire people. We're going to have a complaint. Like all kinds of things are going to happen. And really, I think success is about the speed at which I recover from it. How quickly can I? So, and that means for those who are listening who are a little bit more perfectionistic, that's harder, because like you want the best option. And I think for me, my success is about the fact that I'm really willing to fail forward. I'm really willing to see that obstacle, and I'm really willing to try something new to push it forward, even if it's not perfect and I have to readjust later. I also think that I'm willing to adjust to a new normal quickly. And when I say that, like, raising three kids, I have three adult children. I've cared for my father-in-law who had dementia. I've cared for my own mom. And, sometimes life sets you up, not just a setback, but like kind of overtakes you, and I think sometimes people try to continue doing the same things and they still have this thing coming at them. So like, for instance, my mom, for a period of time, my brother and I were taking her to the doctor once a week. We're both busy. We're both, and if I kept thinking about my mom having to take her to the doctor as like a change in my schedule or an obstacle or a setback, I'm going to keep feeling like that. But me, I'm like, okay, this is my new normal. This is happening right now. This is a chapter of my life that I'm in, and I'm going to accept that. So I'm just going to put time in my calendar for that. And something else has to go. And so I think that also is really helpful in getting over maybe not setbacks, like one little setback, but changes or chapters in our life, to say, I'm really going to accept that right now this chapter is that, I was raising my kids. I'm going to a swim meet every Saturday. So rather than seeing that as a burden or still trying to do everything on my list, I got to outsource, I got to hire somebody, or I've decided I shouldn't do it, rather than trying to fit it all together. And what I see when I coach people is that they're still trying to put it all on the plate, and they're trying to have everything at once. And life is much more about chapters of our lives where we can have certain things at certain times. And I think that if people adjust to that, I think that they'll not be exhausted and have more success.
Yeah, I think what you said is so important. It's almost like, everything is a phase. And as you said, when the kids growing up, they go through this phase and the next phase and the next phase. Mm-hmm. And we do the same. We don't stop going through phases in our lives. Suddenly something comes out of left center and we have to deal with it. And it is the grace with which we deal with it. Mm-hmm. That is the important thing. And you keep piling that extra thing onto an already full plate, then of course you're going to be overwhelmed and feel you can't cope, you've lost control and just go into a spin. So, you exactly as you said, if there's a lot of stuff on your plate, take something off, because it's just a phase. You could put it back on again later on. But, put self-care, always keep self-care on the plate, because that can be one of the things that people take off. I'll get back to, exercising. I'll get back to eating well. I'll get back to looking after myself, when I've got more time. But that's one thing I say, just keep on your plate, because your daily mindset practice, whatever you do to keep yourself sane in this busy world. So in terms of work-life practice, work-life balance, what I hear from a lot of clients is, well, if I want to make more money, I'm going to have to work harder. And I don't want to do that, because I don't want to sacrifice my family time, and I want to still be able to do my, have some time off and hobbies, etc. So how do you address that? Being more successful with having to work longer hours, because the two things don't have to go together. There are many people who are doing, even better than ever before, working less.
So, and that's so true of my journey. I grew up on a farm, and when I first, became an adult and started doing all this, I really just thought if I worked harder, everything would be okay. And then, my stepdad was really sick, and I vividly remember being at the grocery store, Wegmans, one morning, and like the cashier is looking at me like, are you okay? Like, I kind of phased out a little bit as I'm paying for my bill, and oh my gosh, I'm not okay, and that was a moment in my life where I realized like, you just can't keep working harder. What I have found, Nina, is that, I have lots of different businesses. I don't typically ever work more than 40 hours a week. When I was raising my kids, I consistently took 11 weeks off every single summer, consistently. This is stuff I did while I was growing my businesses. And it is about being fierce about the idea that I'm going to be productive. So for me, I have a thing called chunk it, where you chunk your time, energy, and presence. And I really am disciplined about that. So the thing is that what I do today is harder. So I might work less hours, but the hours I work might be harder. I have to do more, So for a lot of my businesses, honestly, I'm often telling somebody something they don't want to hear. So I don't care if it's a client or a staff person, I'm trying to move it forward. I'm halfway negotiating with them, right? So for some people, like, yeah, if you're a financial advisor and you're still going to fill out your applications, you're going to have to work harder. So you're going to have to learn how to delegate that down to somebody else. Marketing, if you might love marketing, I do too, but maybe you got to get yourself out of that. Maybe you shouldn't be setting up that seminar. Maybe you don't even have to do the seminar. And so the idea is that, but that time that you fill, is time that's really focused time. So when I work, I work. I think the number one thing for me is presence. I am where I am. So if I'm home with my kids, I'm home with my kids, and I don't think about work. And I'm at work, I work. My kids don't call me and ask me what's for dinner, or I'm at work. And I think being able to be productive and give it my all wherever I was at is an important skill. And please know, like, you may be listening and you might say, gosh, I can't do that. If you're at work and you're so worried about something at home, go home and fix that, because you're not doing either thing any good. And even my own staff, Nina, people do not ever knock on the door and say to me, I just have a quick question, because no question's quick. If I'm working on something hard and they knock on my door, it's going to take me 20 minutes. We know that statistic, that science has been around for a while, to get back to where I was. So I just lost 20 minutes. So, everything for me is very calendared, and then I'm very disciplined to go after it. And I work hard in the time I have, but I don't work longer hours. And again, it goes back to taking things off your plate and being willing to let go of those things. And it is scary, because you have to learn maybe something new, or a different skill set. But at the end of the day, it's really what success is about. And I wouldn't trade my life for anything. I'm a serial entrepreneur who gets to spend most of my time dealing with something that I'm very passionate about, which is, how we age, how we deal with diseases such as, dementia, how we can help people get ready for that, second half of life. And so I feel very, very grateful for that.
Yes, that is the secret, isn't it? To be present at what you're doing, be present with your family, be present at work. I think you said that in such an amazing way. It really, really landed for me. And to work smart. It's not about working longer hours. It's about really being smart. So what would you say to anyone who's listening, who's in conflict between thinking, okay, I need to delegate, but I don't want to necessarily take on another team member because I'm at that cusp where, I'm not quite bringing enough business to afford to pay someone else to do extra work. And they're in this sort of conflict of being pulled back, but they know deep down, in order to grow, they need to take that leap of faith, if you like. How do they take that leap of faith?
So it really depends on what type of a person they are. So I do a lot of work around Colby, which talks about how we instinctively, naturally do things. So if I was coaching somebody, it would be important to me what their Colby was, because for some people, if you're like a fact find follow through, you need a plan. So then in a coaching day, I'm going to sit down and figure out that plan with you, like, because you need that in order to jump. You need your parachute in order to jump. And so we need to build that, or you need to build that yourself. But you do need to know, like, when you build something, sometimes it's harder to increase your business 10% than it is to double it. So sometimes I found that there's like thresholds of certain numbers of employees that are more profitable than other numbers. So like you really have to think about that. So sometimes, unfortunately, it's not just adding one, it could be adding two or three and those types of things. If you're more like me, I'm a quick start, more like me, and I will just jump off and, hope somebody throws me a parachute. I think for that, it's really spending my time thinking about what does that look like if I jump over there? What does my life look like? So is there some parts of that I don't want? So, and for some people, like when I've worked with them, they're like, oh, I don't want to do that because I'm going to have to do seminars at night and not be home with my family. I've never done a seminar at night. I've never, why? Like, that's not what I want to do. Like, I have a good message. I've done a lot of retail seminars, and I actually, did the data and found that 10 o'clock in the morning actually works quite well. Less people come, but the people who come actually say yes. So, stuff like that. So for somebody like me, like if you're asking how to get me to do it, I need to know what over there looks like. I don't need the plan. I just need to know what I'm getting. And so I think that's really important, being honest with what do you need to be able to do that, and not allowing yourself to give excuses, and you really have to end up being vulnerable that we give excuses because we're scared that we're not going to succeed. And the thing is that if you let yourself go, you have a plan, you are going to succeed. In the years that I've coached people and watched and been in this business, anybody can succeed. It's really about being committed, having that plan, being committed to it. And if anything, honestly, the work you do, like people self-sabotage because they don't have the right mindset, and they wince back right when they should have pushed forward. And the other thing is, you really do have to be honest with the other people in your life. So, for me, I needed to do what I needed to do, but I needed to talk to my spouse about that. So he understood, not that he was going to help, not that I needed him, but I did need him to understand, the risk I was taking and what I was going to do. And I needed to feel his support. So I also think, what are the other people in your life? And if you have an aging parent or you're raising a kid, what does that look like? For me, raising kids, I always believed that I had an aunt early on that told me it's not the quantity of time that you spend with your kids, it's the quality. And I really took that to heart. And so I would just add that you're not in a bubble. None of us are. We have relationships, and we have to make sure that everybody understands what we're doing and how we're doing it and is on board with it. Because if the other person isn't on board with it, you're going to sabotage it because of that relationship.
Yeah.
So important.
And it's interesting how many times we think of doing something or wanting to something in our lives, and we can talk ourselves out of it very, very quickly and easily. And then we abandon that goal and we settle for less, for a smaller goal, but it doesn't excite us. And it feels kind of dull or heavy and not very interesting. And therefore we don't put in the work even for that goal, and we'll just pull back even more. Now, I know that you work with financial advisors who, some of them aren't confident about pushing themselves out there in marketing themselves. So there can be all sorts of fears around that, fear of rejection, what people are going to say, being judged, all that stuff. So how, what is your strategy for coping with that? Putting yourself out there, being visible, marketing, because everyone needs to market to get more clients.
Yeah. I think again, for me, it kind of goes back to those core values, how I show up in the world. And so if I'm showing up in the world the way I want to, I can move past that. And if I'm not, then it does really bother me. So, for people, I think once you have clarity, you should just go do it. I think to be successful in anything, there is, it is a little lonely at the top. People are going to comment on you. are going to poke at you, or, you're going to get a bad review. And I really just think you have to have thick skin to say, that doesn't matter, like, I'm just going to move forward. I say that, Nina, but I'm also a person that will see if I can get any constructive criticism about anything that anybody's saying about me. So one of my first jobs, I worked for Penn State University in the Department of Agriculture, and I did continuing education to accountants across the state of Pennsylvania. And they did evaluations. And Nina, I was not a good speaker. I really wasn't. And the evaluations were horrible. And I would take them home every night, and I would look at them in my hotel room. And I remember the person who had hired me, who was, my supervisor, said, "Julie, don't look at them," and I did. And the thing is that I think you have to allow yourself to not at all listen to constructive criticism, because you can learn from others about how you show up in the world. But then you have to dedicate yourself to staying out there and getting yourself better. So, I guess I'm a big believer in the 10,000 hours. So the idea is that don't give up until you have that 10,000 hours. Like, always believe in yourself that you can get better. Don't let them stop you from what you want. And so, yeah, put yourself out there, do something different, do something outrageous, and know that when you're successful, somebody is going to say something about it. And, you can evaluate that, but don't take it on. See if you can learn anything and make yourself any better. And if you can't, let it go.
Yeah, it reminds me of the time I did a public talk to a small audience, and I had slides. And because I didn't know how to do public speaking, I tried to memorize everything. Mm-hmm. And what I was saying didn't go with the slide. It was an absolute shambles. I was deeply embarrassed. And the lady who was hosting it, she very kindly sent me an email. And she gave me lots of great tips on my slideshow and presenting and all the rest of it. And I was so grateful to her. Because I've got pretty thick skin and I don't take things personally, I saw exactly what it was, very kindly meant. And she took the time and effort to list a whole load of things I could do to improve my public speaking. I mean, who would do that?
Right.
And it's not caring about, people saying nasty things. It's just looking for those gems in the feedback that you get that can help you to grow and get better. Just taking those and ignoring everything else, because that's how we grow, from feedback. And having constructive feedback, I think, is so important to, getting better and better. And it's repetition. If you want to get better at something, you just keep repeating it with all the information you have. You could put that into the next time you do it, make it better and better and better. And that is so joyful, because you can look back and think, well, last year I was doing it like that, but now look at me, look what I'm doing now. Look how much I've improved, and there's still so much more to do. And I find that really, really exciting. So, Julie, looking back over your life so far, what would you say is the biggest lesson that life has taught you?
That's a great question. I think, for me, is that you can't have it all at once. I grew up in an age where, like, the movie 9 to 5, Dolly Parton, bring home the bacon, fry it up in the pan. And so I was raised, I think, to think women can have it all, you can have it all, but not all at once. And so prioritizing what phase of life you are and not missing that phase, I'm so glad I was able to do that, because I didn't miss raising my kids. And I loved every moment of that. Now my phase is, taking care of my mom, and I'm not going to miss that. So I think really understanding that, it's okay to prioritize, and that you can't have it all at the same time. You can have it all, throughout your life, and hopefully you live long and, you're able to, enjoy all of that. But I think that for me, is one of the biggest things.
And being present in each phase.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I, when you were talking before, I also thought, and this is one of the things I've had to learn is being, when you were talking about, being really graceful as you learn, being graceful for yourself, to yourself. I think, for so much of my life, I just wanted myself to be better. And I didn't always have the grace with my own self that I maybe would extend to another person to let me grow, and to be satisfied where I was at. So I think if people are listening, I would say to you, like, give yourself some grace. Life is tough and there's ups and downs. And as long as you're moving forward, I think that's great.
Yeah, it's such a wonderful journey that we're on.
It is.
So, Julie, how can our listeners find out more about you and the amazing work you're doing?
Yeah, great. So we have a website at themilliondolarsolution.com. So it's themilliondolarsolution.com. And right now, if you get on there, we have information for financial advisors and estate and elder law attorneys. We also need to have, we didn't get to talk about this much today, but we also have the dementiafocusedpractice.com. So understand that a lot of my work is in all areas that we talked about today, but there's a special passion I have around dementia. I work with financial advisors and attorneys in understanding how to market to people who have dementia or worried about dementia. So under the dementiafocusedpractice.com, there's a book that I wrote called Help More People Make More Money. There's also events that we have on there. People can get on and get the book for free. They also can look at our events that we have coming up.
Wonderful. And I would recommend everyone go and check out Julie's work because she's an absolute superstar. You've done so much to help so many people to grow their business and also in a personal capacity as well. It's been an absolute joy having you on. I've been so excited. And for everyone who's been listening, I know you've got a ton of value from this call. Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you, Nina. I appreciate it.